This is the Everything Financial Radio Show on the Legacy Radio Network. I am your host, Dennis Tubbergen. I am here every week at this time, and I'm awfully glad you decided to tune in today. I have a terrific show lined up for you today. Miss Leslie Paige from the organization Citizens Against Government Waste will be stopping in. Of course, whenever you talk about government waste, there's no shortage of things to talk about, and we're going to zero in on a couple of press releases recently issued by Citizens Against Government Waste where they have zeroed in and identified some things that every member of Congress, regardless of party, should be able to agree don't need to continue. We'll talk to her about the fact that the military has been funding commissaries for the last 120 years, and they really don't need to be. Also, in the last segment of today's show, I want to set the record straight. There are some get-out-of-debt gurus out there offering some college planning advice that's just flat out, in my view, dangerous. I'm going to talk about that. Also, the U.S. dollar. As much as the Fed is printing money, could it be that the U.S. dollar will get stronger over the next couple of years, and what will that mean for markets and your investments? I'll talk about that in the next segment of today's program. And Europe. Given that the presidential election is now over and the dust has settled, Europe, which was a page 3 story, is now back to a page 1 story. Greece and Spain in deflationary depressions. Middle-class folks, teachers and doctors in Greece and Spain not getting paid. No other way to describe it other than a deflationary depression. How long will the euro hold together, and what will it mean for you and your money when it comes apart? We'll talk about that. Want to quick remind you that if you've not yet gotten our 2012 guide, Surviving a Market Crash, all you have to do is go to investingapproach.com and request a copy. You just enter your name and address. Let us know where you'd like to have that report sent. We'll be glad to send it to you. Again, the 2012 guide, Surviving a Market Crash, is available at investingapproach.com. Also, one discovery group left this year. You can go to personallegacyseminars.com and take a look. December 6th, we've got 2 sessions from 4:30 until 6 p.m. If you're 65 and older, we'll give you some 2013 Medicare and Social Security updates. And if you're between the ages of 55 and 65, another session especially for you, dealing with where the economy is going and what it might mean for your retirement plans and 401k plans. That, again, is from 7 to 8:30. You can get information on that by going to personallegacyseminars.com. Also, any of our programs, as well as interviews with guest experts, are available on iTunes. You can just go to the Apple Store, search under Everything Financial Radio, and you can download for free any of our programs or interviews. You can also go listen to archive shows at everythingfinancialradio.com. Leslie Paige from the organization Citizens Against Government Waste stopping in. Leslie, welcome back to the program.
Hey, Dennis, how are you?
I'm terrific.
Thanks so much for having me back. I love being on.
I'm glad you're here. Leslie, for listeners that may not be familiar with your organization, Citizens Against Government Waste, give them a quick education, will you, please?
Sure. I mean, we were, this organization, Citizens Against Government Waste, was established during the Reagan administration. When Ronald Reagan became president, he tapped J. Peter Grace, the industrialist, the big capitalist. He was a big mogul, basically, W.R. Grace Company, to do a 2-year audit of the federal government to determine whether or not there were waste, fraud, abuse, mismanagement, and various inefficiencies that could be identified and corrected. And what he did was Grace went out into the business community and asked lots of companies all over the country to contribute personnel to the cause, if you will. And they came out and they sent hundreds of people to Washington, and they did this at no cost to the taxpayers. By the way, the cost of these auditors, et cetera, were covered by the companies who sent them. Sort of in-kind contributions, if you will. And they spent 2 years auditing the federal budget at the time, and they came up with 2,500 recommendations of different ways of saving money and creating efficiencies, getting rid of duplication, and just the kind of thing you would normally do if you were looking to save money and have something work better. And the organization was grew out of that after in 1984 when the report was finished. J. Peter Grace and Jack Anderson, the former columnist and investigative journalist, banded together to create Citizens Against Government Waste, and we've been doing this ever since. So.
Well, Leslie, certainly there's no shortage of government waste to talk about. In fact, I visited your website, and I was alarmed to read that the government is now increasing our debt at the rate of $40,000 per second. And,
that's not even, yeah.
At the time we're recording this, which is about a week before this airs, the big discussion out there is the fiscal cliff and sequestration or just mandatory across-the-board cuts. Given where we are at this point, how do you see this whole fiscal cliff issue and the sequestration playing out?
Well, there are several scenarios, and just as we are speaking, which is, before, at the very beginning of these quote-unquote negotiations, not much has happened. By the time this airs, possibly, there may be some more things to talk about. There are several things that could happen here. Well, first of all, let's talk about what the fiscal cliff is, because I think a lot of people may think it's a combination, a whole slew, if you will, of tax and spending and all kinds of provisions that basically it's fiscal policies that are all going to hit at the same time on January 1st, 2013, which would include tax hike, major tax increases, smaller tax increases, deep spending cuts, the expiration of the payroll tax holiday that we've all had in the last year or so, and then on top of that, targeted spending cuts that are supposed to take effect. So we've got a lot of stuff going on at the same time, including, and some of it is a little esoteric even. I mean, some of it has to do with the doc fix, the quote-unquote the doc fix, which is the cutting the pay for doctors who take Medicare patients. That's part of this whole thing. So there's a lot of stuff all occurring more or less at the same time, including a debt ceiling increase, which is will be coming in and around the same time period. In terms of what will happen here, I have absolutely no crystal ball, trust me on this, and I don't think anyone else does either. What I'm hearing around town today is that the staffs are talking, that they're talking to each other, but that the principals have not necessarily gotten in the rooms together. They're at that beginning stages where the staffs are trying to determine where there are probably areas of consensus that can be kind of taken off the table, and where are the big rubs? Where is the rubber going to hit the road? Where are there going to be massive changes and massive conflicts that need to be addressed? So I think they're probably at that stage right now. And of course, there are several things that could happen. One is we could go over the cliff. I mean, this Congress and this administration are not averse to brinksmanship, and I suspect we could be going to the very bitter end with this. And in the end, it's possible that we could all go over this cliff. Some people are actually saying we should. It's time to pay the piper, and that we cannot keep paying for everything that we're doing, and it's time to get some reality back in the budget. Maybe a shock like that would be the way to go. Others are saying that this would be too disruptive to the economy, which is just barely growing and barely showing any signs of life, and then a fiscal cliff would be a massive mistake. And then all that they'll do is spend the rest of the time blaming each other for who's responsible for it.
Yeah,
don't you think... There's also the possibility of a grand bargain, something very, very big that overhauls the tax code and deals with the cuts and puts the budget on a sustainable path and handles a lot of the issues that are plaguing us. I don't think we have the time in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks to do something of that magnitude, personally. So I think there's probably going to be something temporary put together to get us, maybe something that will take care of some of this, a small, maybe the easy, low-hanging fruit stuff. I don't think they're going to have time to do anything huge. But again, there are always these surprises around every corner.
Yeah, and Leslie, it's amazing to me that just about everything Washington has put together in the way of legislation over the last dozen years or so has been temporary. The Bush tax cuts, in fact, which were enacted back, I believe, in 2001 in order to get them passed, there were certain sunset provisions, and here we are at sunset and
Yep.
staring a fiscal cliff, right in the eye. So it wouldn't surprise me either if we see something that's temporary. Leslie,
Well,
we've got just about a minute left in this segment. If
Sure.
someone wants to learn more about Citizens Against Government Waste, what would you direct them to do?
Well, we'd go to our website. That's always the best place to start these days, isn't it? And that is at www.cagw.org. And our website is replete with information on waste, fraud, abuse, and everything from Department of Defense issues to sequestration, fiscal cliff, to programmatic waste. We have lists of cuts, which we call prime cuts, which we've been doing for years, which basically gives people an opportunity to find out, if we decide to cut wasteful spending, where would we go? What would we do? What would be a prime choice there to cut? And we talk about pork barrel spending, so there's a lot of stuff on our website.
Well, terrific. I'd encourage the listeners to go there. And in the next segment, we're going to talk with Leslie about the next possible bailout. The United States Postal Service is in trouble, and we're also going to talk to her about a recent press release issued by her organization about some waste in the Defense Department. So you'll want to stay with us. We'll be talking to Leslie Paige when Everything Financial Radio returns. Stay with us.